All right, this is the top of the hour, but I just see people joining, so let's wait for 2 more minutes. So we are actually missing a couple of presenters here. Shuyan, Haomyang, David.
Yeah, I'm afraid that we have to wait for more minutes.
Med or Rashad, if you could, or Thomas, if you could do me a favor, please, is to drop a message to NMOP mailing list telling the meeting is now. I'm out of VPN right now and I cannot do that.
Okay, I'll do that.
Sure, will do.
Thanks. So for the people who just joined, we are waiting for a couple of key persons who need to present part of our agenda. So we're afraid that we have to wait until those people join. Sorry for the inconvenience.
So I sent a reminder email, but I don't see it having come through yet in my inbox.
I sent the invite out just a minute ago.
Thank you to both of you.
I just heard David should be joining shortly.
Okay, thank you. So if I look at the agenda, we've got David, but we need Shui Yan.
Yeah. For Shuan, I just received an email from her asking for the link to connect. So I think there is some troubles there. I will do that right now.
Thanks.
I sent an email to her to how to join.
Sorry, I'm late because I joined the meeting through the Teams. 后面is take the flight, so I will practice the presentation instead of working.
Okay, very good. So we can start. Thomas, do you have all the people who we need?
I think so. For the presentations, yes, but for the liaison, maybe Xuanyang, we are missing, I think.
Yeah, she should be able to join shortly.
Okay, very good. So when she joins, we're going to start the meeting.
Yeah, because she wasn't able to use Teams for joining, and I asked her to join via Meet Echo.
Perfect. All right, very good. So it seemed that we've got everybody. So on behalf of Matt Bukader, co-chair, future ex-co-chair, on behalf of Reshad, new co-chair, of Thomas, our secretary, welcome to this session. The NMOP virtual working group meeting with a focus on the cooperation with the Broadband Forum. So this session is recorded. So since we have people from BBF, and that's maybe one of the reasons why there was some trouble to join this meeting, because you're not used to the process, sorry about that. So let's focus on the note well. Since we have people from the Broadband Forum, let me spend some time discussing the note well here. So the note well is expressed that by participating to the IETF, you are agreed to follow up the IETF process and policies, and that if you are aware of any patent, you should disclose those. You agree that everything that you're going to say here in this meeting is going to be public, and the information about the personal information will be handled in accordance with the IETF privacy statement. And also importantly, we all agree that we're going to work with each other respectfully. So the agenda, we're doing the slide introduction by the chairs. Then we're going to have Shuayan discussing the broadband liaison statement, Thomas on the NMOP message broker, an overview, while David or someone, I don't recall the name, is going to present on the WT508 from Broadband Forum, which is the broadband network data collection. Then a discussion about the Broadband Forum and NMOP cooperation, and the next step by the chairs based on what we heard from this meeting. Is there any agenda bashing? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed. So this slide is actually cut. I don't know what's happening. I even uploaded slides multiple times. So what we have in there, and I just cut and pasting the interesting information. So the meeting objectives are, first of all, an initial exchange of information, but also we want to ensure that since both of us, Broadband Forum and IETF, are working on a data collection architecture, it would be great that we've got a consistent architecture by leveraging common building blocks. So there are, like we had first in December, a liaison statement to Broadband Forum on automated intelligent management. And we had like a reply, and by the way, I cut and pasted what's missing from the slide, the chat window. A reply from Broadband Forum. And something I want to stress is that you will hear a couple of times about this document WT508, so the Broadband Network Data Collection. This document is actually attached to the liaison reply. So in the chat window, if you click on the second link, you will find the Word document attached there. Okay. So in the IETF, we try to work with milestones that are linked to dates, and the document in question here for this interim, the Young Push to Message Broker, we would like to submit it to publication to the IESG, the steering group, in September 2025. And this is my last slide. What I want to mention as well is that we've got if you see from the chat window, we've got the meeting notes that we take online. So feel free to participate directly to that. So Matt, Reshad, did I miss anything from this intro?
I don't believe so.
Okay, very good. So the way to participate whenever there is a presentation, there is a Q&A, so you could just raise your hand. This is like you can join the queue, which is a small icon in the bottom part. And if you're not speaking, it would be great if you could just mute, for example, Bruno. Thank you. So next in the agenda, we're going to have a discussion about the liaison statement by Shui Yang. So there, I understand that there are no slides for this, so feel free to speak over.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Will I share my screen to show the liaison?
Please.
Okay.
So I need to give you access.
Yeah, so you have to request for share screen. You have some buttons at the bottom of the Mitico. It's just yeah.
Okay, I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. This is Tom from joining from BBF side. So is it correct that people need an IETF data tracker account to be able to join this?
Yes, and I believe it was one of the issues here. So
yeah, I know of some other people who are struggling to get in.
Right. So you are right. We need a data tracker account to be able to access Mitico. This is simply an email registration. There is not more to it, and this is requested. So feel free to mention that to all the people who try to join, or maybe Rashad, since you sent an email, maybe you could also send that as a reply to the meeting invite, which is happening now, telling please log in as a data tracker.
Okay, sure.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah, thank you.
Shuayan, up to you.
Yes, Benoit, please, if you can just approve the request to share the screen. I don't know why from my side it doesn't work.
I don't see it any longer.
You see it on the queue, so Xion is in the queue requesting for it.
I don't see it in the queue.
Or maybe Richard, you can do that as well. I don't know why my side it doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't see where. I mean, I saw the request from Julian, but I don't see where I can give her the permission.
You can just go over the name of the one, and then you have the grant screen. Then you can click on it.
Yes. Okay. Now I can control.
Okay, please go on.
I can control the slides.
You can control, but you cannot. You don't have your slides.
Yeah, actually, I don't have slides, but I just want to share the liaison statement. Web. The liaison. Yeah, 1975. Maybe you can help to share the screen. The liaison test. I think maybe there's some difficulty for me to share it.
Would it help if I share my screen with the liaison?
Yes, please, Thomas.
Sure. I get all slots for the requested media already taken.
Same thing here.
I think, Benoit, you have to stop sharing if you want the others to share, if I'm not mistaken. So please. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas. I will have a introduction for the liaison from BBF. So can you scroll down a bit? Yeah, I think the broadband forum would like to thank IETF NMOP for the liaison regarding automated intelligent management aim and broadband network data collection BNDC. And the BBF broadband forum thank IETF NMOP to inform the BBF the work for architecture of young push work. And BBF also thank you IETF NMOP notify the work may be relevant with the BBF BNDC work. And the BBF would like to inform IETF NMOP that the activity related to the data collection work, this work is just at beginning, and there are many, there's no decision decided on the possible protocols used between the interfaces. And BBF will update IETF NMOP if there's big changes about this work. And the latest version of the WT 508, the BNDC work is attached to this liaison. Yeah, this document is under development. And the scope and the project purpose is written in this in the attachment. I will make a brief introduction about the project scope for this work. It involves the architectural definition and the description of the components of the data collection solution. I think the words showed as too small. Thomas, can you amplify? Yeah. Better. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The scope for this work involves the architecture definition and description of the components of data collection. And the second one is about the interface specification, which involves the interface between the components of data collection and the BBF standard data objects, which also involves the vendor-specific attention to determine how they best fit in this model, and the use case such as real-time, on-demand, or streaming telemetry, bulk collection, and adaptive DC, driven by some predefined strategies, and transfer protocols for the different connection modes, and data encapsulation mechanisms, recommendation of preferred open source tools, the broadband forum. So the broadband forum would very be great for with to have collaboration with IETF NMOP. Okay, and please scroll down. And the BBF would also like to invite IETF experts to join BBF incoming meeting, and the incoming meeting is a BBF spring meeting, which is scheduled 1 week before IETF 122 meeting at Bangkok. BBF meeting is at Hong Kong. So, and actually, we also noticed that such as Thomas did BBF conference call for several times, which is very helpful. And he also provided many suggestions to the BBF BNDC work. It's very appreciated. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, just one clarification question from my side, Xuan. Can you please remind us about the target publication date you have on your side for the current specification?
I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't get your point on my side for the current specification, right? Or
yeah, my point is if there is, I would say, a target date in which you will finalize the WT 508. Is there a target date to have that finalized, or is it an open process?
Yeah, actually, WT 508 now is at its beginning state now, and it is expected to be finalized. Might be in 1 year or 2 years. Actually, I'm not very sure about it. Maybe the BBF SDNFV work area director. I'm not sure whether Bruno is online. Maybe he can answer this question. Yeah, thank you.
I'm looking to the plan. At the moment, we don't have any specific plan for publication. I'm sorry for that, but considering where we are today, I think that most likely we will complete the document within 2025. But then the publication could require other 6 months for straw ballot and final ballot processes. So let me say that in middle of 26 could be published probably.
Thank you, Bruno, for this information.
And this is why I shared the slide again, that we have an ideal goal to publish our document, to send it to IESG for review by September this year.
And more or less we are aligned.
Right. And can you remind us, because you invited IETF people to join BBF, sorry, in the calls, but is this welcome to anybody? This invitation, or need to be members, or how do you see it working?
Are you talking about this specific call? I sent to the Explorer how to enter, and then all the people were able. The point is that all the people had to register to IETF.
No, not this one. Sorry, you mentioned like we're welcome to attend the meeting in Hong Kong 1 week before the IETF meeting.
Yeah.
So this one, you need to be a member to attend, right?
Yes, you need to be a member. Yes. Otherwise, you need to ask to participate as a guest. You can ask if your company is not a BBF member. You can ask to Ronda Ayer. If you need it, I can send the email to participate as a guest. But in this case, there are some strong limitations in the participation because you cannot talk at the meeting. There are a lot of things. So I don't know how useful it could be if you are not a member.
All right, so we could be going to the next slide. Thomas?
Yes, so if we could pass on the rights to switch the slides. Yes, perfect. Thanks a lot. So please interrupt me at any time if you have any questions or clarifications in between. So this is about Yang push to message broker integration, which we're discussing and in the IETF NMOP. So today on the agenda we have giving a brief overview from where we are coming from in terms of Yang, what are the motivation and the architecture and the current implementation status, and also basically where the enhancements which we are bringing into the Yang push notifications and capabilities, how this works together, and also some of the industry deployments on Yang push, about the MVP cycles in there, and some upcoming implementation status updates, which we are doing at the IETF 122 hackathon. So going back in time, so in 2002 with the RFC 3535, we basically at IETF we defined the life cycle of CLI and SNMP. So we went forward with the development of Yang as a data modeling language and NetConf and ResConf as an API. Then the specification of Yang 1.0 happened in 2010. And in 2015, the development of IETF Yang push started, which then led into RFC 8639 and RFC 8641. In parallel, there was an industry movement which led to GNMI, and then the final specifications of IETF Yang push finished in 2019. However, we on network operators' demands was that the initial development on IETF Yang push was not covering the aspects of the data mesh integration. So therefore, we started in 2022 this initiative to extend IETF Yang push and also define an architecture for the integration into message brokers, which led to this document which I'm presenting here today. So the main focus is so Yang is equally machine and human readable. However, today the challenge in the industry, if we are asking the network operators how long does it take to subscribe to Yang data and make it available to network operations, is it minutes, hours, days, weeks? Usually the answer is not minutes or hours, it's more days and weeks. So that leads basically to the conclusion that there is some manual work always needed for each subscription. So basically the onboarding of new data is cannot be fully automated today. So the aim here is to have an automated data processing pipeline, but also that we want to be able to correlate data. So therefore, for correlation, we need to make sure that the time stamps are available when the metrics are being observed on the network versus when they are being exported by the Yang publishing process. But also important is to preserve the semantics from the network. Otherwise, the mapping, the semantics, the metrics cannot be correlated against each other. But also, since the semantics, the schema is evolving over time, we need to be able on the data processing pipeline to make sure that we can deal with these semantic changes over time. So we came up with this architecture here on the, and I see Mauro is joining the queue. So yes, Mauro.
Yeah, Thomas. Hi, nice to meet you, and hopefully, you know, seeing also you in Hong Kong. As you moving into this detail slide, I wanted to maybe to ask you for a little bit of explanation about the scheme you had before, showing, you know, there is a Yang push stage, and then moving into data mesh and the analytics. So a question I have, and maybe it's part of a little bit of ignorance, I tend to connect Yang with the data model, and then the push more related to, you know, a mechanism to move the data, so a protocol. And to me, Yang is not a protocol. Again, maybe I'm not on the wrong side. So can you explain a little bit what Yang push means? Because here it's more a way of organizing data, as far as I understand, and then the notion of data mesh, which seems a key element you're bringing to us also as related to the roadmap you show. In 2022, we needed to deal with a data mesh kind of issue. And I think it's key, and I'm not necessarily into that, and it would be useful. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. So probably I overstepped a few things here. So Yang is a data modeling language. So we have version 1.0 and also 1.1. 1.1, which is specified in RFC 7950. And basically the APIs, initially netconf and resconf, already gave us the capability with netconf get and also netconf notifications, for instance, to expose Yang metrics from the network. However, there was, let's say, an industry or an operator's need that basically the subscription should move from the data collection to the network element, so that the element is pushing the information directly to the data collection, which helps in the scalability. So in the latest, basically obtaining Yang metrics from the network, Yang pushes are basically the latest iteration at IETF, how to expose in a scalable fashion Yang information from the network. However, on the network operator side, if we go back in time, like pre-big data era, we had data silos. So we had network management systems, and we had usually in operators multiple network management systems. And in order to gain an end-to-end view across the networks, basically there was a need to bring big data. And then there are several iterations on big data in architecture. Most famous is like the data lake, which is like a centralization of data. However, with centralization, there is usually also some bottleneck. So the data mesh architecture tries to resolve the bottleneck that one team or one unit is responsible of maintaining the so-called data product. So in our case, the network metrics which we are sharing. And in order to bring the data mesh, which is like a message broker integration, and Yang push, which is a messaging protocol exporting Yang data, to combine the two things, we come up with this architecture which I'm presenting here. And I see Francisco is in the queue.
Okay,
and Mauro,
so
were I able to answer your question?
Yeah. Just a little bit in terms of nomenclature. Again, sorry, maybe I'm picking on the word. So the concept of meshing, which means mixing to me, is because if I got your last sentence, is really meshing together, but correct me if I'm wrong, the southbound part of the push with the notion of the message broker, which is the way we expose to a multiplicity of network analysis systems. So flexibility also in terms of delivery. Is that correct? Is that mesh? Okay.
Absolutely. So the point is basically export the metrics once from the network and be able in the message broker to consume multiple times.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Thomas. Very, very helpful.
Thanks, Mauro.
Hi, Thomas. It's kind of a similar thing because like Mauro was a little bit confused regarding protocols and the Yang. And I also see GNMI just preceding the data mesh integration. So if I understood right, there's a kind of almost like a pre-protocol that you're trying to implement with Yang push. So Yang push itself is a protocol. Is that correct?
That's right. So basically, besides, there is not only Yang push, you will also learn later in the slides, there's also an Yang library, and there are also capabilities. And there you will find out when I'm describing that these are main differences, for instance, towards GNMI. So in order to integrate the Yang push seamlessly into message brokers, we need certain capabilities so that this integration can be done in an automated fashion.
Okay, so then that was going to be I'm beginning to understand this really. Okay, so what do you see as gRPC, GNMI, Kafka bus problems that you can't do today, and therefore the need for this Yang push? But I think we're coming to that, right? So,
exactly.
All right, I'll pause my question and thank you.
Perfect. So then let me move here into the architecture. So on the left-hand side, you see the system blocks. So to go briefly through the key items which are relevant to understand how they are working together. So we have one part which is the manage Yang push subscriptions, which is basically discover first the capability on the network element in terms of what can be exported, in which interval it can be exported, what kind of transport encodings are being supported, and then finally subscribe depending on what are the network operators' interests. And then the so-called Yang push publisher is first notifying the Yang push receiver that there is a new subscription. And based off this subscription start information, now the Yang push receiver is capable of discovering through the Yang library all the dependencies on that subscription, and also obtain through netconfig schema or resconfig schema all the schema relevant information, is able to register the Yang schemas in the so-called Yang schema registry. So today, message brokers, besides the message broker, you also have a schema registry. However, those schema registries until now were not natively supporting Yang. So we are bringing in now the Yang capability into the schema registry, because Yang is another let's say, data modeling language. For instance, very popular in big data industries, Apache Avro, for instance. So, and with the registration of the Yang modules, the Yang schema, we are getting a unique schema ID back. So there is a subscription ID on the network element, and there is a schema ID in the message broker. And what basically the Yang push receiver or the data collection is doing is, when it receives the push update or push change update notifications, when it forwards that information or produces that to the message broker, it does basically a translation from the subscription ID or Yang push subscription ID to the Yang schema ID on the message broker. So at the end, on the data consumer, so on the a message broker consumer, when the message is being retrieved, we have a reference to the Yang schema ID. We are able to obtain the Yang schema ID from the schema registry and then validate the message. So this ensures that basically the message complies to the schema, and also the schema then further down in the data storage can be used to create the schema of the time series database, for instance. So if we go through the key elements like the Yang push subscription in order to understand what are the capabilities of the network element or the Yang push publisher, we have in RFC 9196 the capabilities in a Yang module described. There is with the Yang push transport capability an extension which we are currently discussing at NetConf to bring also the Yang push configured subscription transport capabilities, which is the encoding, encryption, and transport possibilities. We extend the current capabilities Yang model. And then last but not least, there is an extension on the notification header. So that allows us the entire message to actually validate against the Yang schema, but also there are some important additional information like the host name, sequence numbers, or also the observation time stamping, which are being added into the notification header, which allows us at the end on the data consumer side to index the notifications properly in a time series, but also identify from which element this notification has been published from. Then on the publisher side, for configured subscription, important is basically the transport protocols. So we have at IETF UDP notif and HTTPS notif, while for UDP notif there is also a capability to distribute the transport protocol in a distributed system, so that, for instance, network processor can directly push notifications down. So it describes the architecture within the distributed system, how the subscription should be decomposed. And then it should obviously also understand the notification headers. Then on the receiver side, basically important is in the subscription started today, we only have the XPath reference, so we know which subtree or XPath has been subscribed. However, we do not have information on the Yang module name, revision label, so that's the semantic versioning, and also the so-called Yang library content ID, which is like a unique hash on the Yang library, which tells us the current state of the Yang model revisions across the data store. And then in the Yang message broker consumer, which is here at the top, today in RFC 7950, where Yang 1.1 has been specified in section 710, how basically any data, the type can be validated is not being described. And this document here describes how any data which is relevant in Yang push for the subscription aspect, how that can be validated against the Yang library. And then at the very last point is the Yang data storage. Here relevant is the observation timestamp, because that's the timestamp we're going to use to index the data in the time series database. So that's in a nutshell the architecture. This is just a reference on the message broker. We introduced at IETF 120 an implementation status update, so the extensions in the schema registry and also on the Kafka serializers to support Yang natively in the message broker. And we're going to have in 122, especially in 123 IETF, we're going to make this accessible as open source to everybody. So just to give a brief highlight, so this is basically the extensions we are bringing into IETF Yang push in the so-called notification envelope drop. So here you see the host name, the sequence number, the observation time, and when basically the metrics were being observed. So depending on whether these are push change updates or on change subscriptions or periodical subscription, there is a different point in time where basically the metrics were being observed. Going forward to the versioning. So here, as previously stated, we have in Yang push so-called subscription state change notification messages. And in the subscription started, we have the XPath filter, but we are missing basically the versioning aspect. And this document is adding that information in the subscription started message so that we can learn over time when the network element has been upgraded to a new software release, that the Yang push receiver or basically everything downstream can learn actually that the Yang model revisions have been changed throughout the process. It also enables the network operator in the subscription to actually pinpoint to a specific revision, because if an operator says, I'm not unable to change revisions over time, I want to make sure that basically the network element only subscribes to a specific revision so that it doesn't break my data processing chain. Then we have the capabilities Yang module, which is defined in RFC 9196. However, what's currently missing is that we can also discover for configured subscription which transport protocols, encoding and security is being supported by the system. And this makes sure that basically all the aspects of Yang push can be automated. Then here, not in Yang push, but actually in Yang library. So today in Yang library is specified in RFC 8525. And today the Yang library gives us an information which Yang models are imported by which Yang module. However, we do not have visibility which Yang models have augmented the current Yang model of interest. And with these extensions, we get a list of basically all the Yang models which have augmented this Yang model. And this is important since here in Yang push, we are subscribing with an XPath or a subtray filter to a part of the Yang schema tree. And in order to see dependencies in both directions, we also need the augmented by information in the Yang library to discover the entire schema tree for a given subscription. And then, as I mentioned previously, in RFC 7950, where Yang 1.1 is being defined, the validation of any data, how this can be performed with the Yang schema tree, this document describes which is the procedure. Then they're also mentioning is there is let's say a network operator's interest to make IETF Yang push a more easier, more simpler. This is what we call Yang push Lite. This has been introduced at the last IETF and it's currently being discussed and it's in a very early state. And I will also explain a little bit later more on this. So in all, these are basically the enhancements we are bringing on Yang push in terms of transport and also in terms of notifications and capabilities exchange and also extensions in the Yang library side. Maybe I make a brief stop here. Are there any questions or clarifications needed? And I see Francisco in the queue.
Hey, Thomas. Thanks for sharing. I must admit, I haven't seen the problems that the GNMI Kafka-based protocols has that Yang push solves. It could be a mistake, but it's not obvious to me what issues was foreseen and therefore the need to have Yang push.
Right. So maybe let me go back basically on the timeline here. Yeah. So basically GNMI was being introduced while IETF Yang push has been specified. So it was so basically GNMI does not have all the features which IETF Yang push has, and especially also the feature which I was just been describing before. So the main, I would say, gap of GNMI today is, first of all, from an implementation point of view, what operators observed is that there are different versions of GNMI. So we have restrictions on interoperability, but I have some slide later on that. The second part is the capabilities exchange. So not all the implementations are supporting all the feature aspects. So for instance, in IETF Yang push, we have two transports. Maybe one implementation supports one transport, while another implementation supports another. Or there can be some parts of like the observation type stamping might be supported or not supported. So the capabilities exchange, able to discover what the Yang push publisher is capable of is completely missing on the GNMI side. And last but not least is in order to understand what has been subscribed, we need subscription state change notification. So we need to understand on the Yang push receiver side that there is a new subscription, and we need to have the capability to understand the schema of the subscription, and that's the whole aspect I was describing on the Yang library side. Maybe I make a stop here.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So I give a bit some input also on the more on the IP on the Yang push implementation and next step side. So there was basically a meeting, a side meeting among different operators and implementers, where we were looking basically what do we like about IETF Yang push and what's unique about Yang push. And your question, Francisco, unique to Yang push and not in GNMI, that's the section I was just on the right at the bottom, what I was just describing before, and the interoperability part. So making sure that basically all the vendor implementations are working fine with the data collection. That was something the operators really liked about IETF Yang push. So then there were also thoughts about what could be improved about IETF Yang push. And one thing which came quite heavily over, and we were covering that with the envelope notification document, was that the operators want an extensible Yang push header. So today we have the host name, the sequence number, the observation time stamping in that header, but they want to make sure that in the future, if new use cases are there, that the header is extensible and can be extended easily. Another challenge, and this is basically which is being addressed in the Yang push light document, is that today the notification schema for on change and periodical is different in IETF Yang push, and there is interest to streamline the schema for both types of subscription. And then another, let's say, very more on the implementation side is the complexity of XPath. So not all the features on XPath are actually needed from an operator's perspective. So we want to narrow down what is really the important parts of XPath which are needed. And last but not least, we want to move forward more in an agile incremental driven development, because we saw before in the timeline that basically it took quite a long time to come up with the final IETF Yang push specification. And because it took a longer time, the industry started to develop more proprietary variations. And at the end, this just causes for the operators more delay to have a final specification, a final implementation. So that moves into like, so we have a list of network vendors and operators who are collaborating on implementations. There are open source and closed source implementation, and we are working on so-called MVP1 implementation, which is covering these documents in here. Some of the implementers are already moving forward to MVP2. And what we expect is basically by end of 2025 that most of the major vendors have implemented in production ready releases MVP1, and then MVP2 and 3 are following in 2026. So at the next IETF hackathon, we are testing those implementations. Here from the IETF 121, the MVP1 status progress, which documents have been implemented and validated against. And in the next IETF 122, our main focus will be on the notification envelope, but also on the capabilities exchange. And will be also the very first IETF where we have actually an OLT implementation. And that's it from my side. Any questions? Yeah, I see Richard in the queue.
Yes, thanks, Thomas. I may have asked you that question before, is what are you using on the client side? Is it your in-house netconf library, or using NC client, or what are you using?
I think it depends on the operator. So so for, let's say, just testing the interoperability for the IETF Yang push, we have actually developed a Python testing framework, which we made in the hackathon repository available to everybody. But in the actual production deployment of the operators, yeah, we're using our existing, let's say, network management system to deploy the Yang push subscription.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And I see Mauro.
Yeah, the very first impressing question is, are you going to bring this cake to Hong Kong?
Yes, absolutely. That's my target.
All right, so you have a pass. Now get into more serious questions and less at the very detailed technical and architectural side. And by the way, thanks a lot to you and the IETF colleagues for sharing this. Certainly, I'm learning something, and it's great to know what IETF is doing per the typical exploitation path that we have also into BPF. But as you know, we have this 508 project ongoing. I'd like really to bluntly ask, you mentioned a number of times, there were decisions and developments related to operators' requests. Very, very transparently, what is the base of operators that you felt is asking for this? And the next question is, as you were saying, YAM push is a way to improve the collection on a YAM-based model and schema for scaling, so for bulk collection. And there is IPFix, for example, which could do a similar job, and we get into the point, if I wait for taking decisions about one or more methods and so on. So I mean, can we understand what is the the backing operators and the whole industry on the IETF side, and what is your personal feeling as an expert between a sort of quick comparison between IPFix, which by the way is specified natively from IETF, and that we are referring to it, versus this YAM push methodology, which is kind of not so novel, but you're bringing that to our attention now. So at a cooking point, looks to me.
I think you're already going ahead. So we're gonna have, after the WT508 presentation, there's also a comparison slide. And there I will answer about IPFix, BMP, and also other aspects which are currently in this document, not in scope. However, the architecture is open for that. And for the operators and vendor backing, so at IETF 120, when we did the side meeting and invited people, we had colleagues from Bell Canada, Deutsche Telekom, NTT, Swisscom, but also on the vendor side from Huawei, Cisco, Sixwin, and Siena, Juniper, Nokia, and also like the INSA Lyon University in the call. Since then, there are more operators and vendors involved, but these were basically back then in July 2024, the group which has been discussing these things here.
Excellent, thank you.
Perfect, then I would say let's move maybe to the next.
Right, thank you, Thomas. So something I want to stress, I mentioned it in the chat. So typically in IETF meetings, we try to respect the agenda slot duration, and this is our job as chair to enforce this. And obviously, the slow start due to tracker ID did not help. Sorry about that, our broadband forum colleagues. Now, if the end goal here is to do cooperation, right? But we believe that the foundational question, the clarification questions are asked and discussed right now are so important that if we don't have the right foundation, we're not going to be able to do good cooperation. So we propose not to enforce the time slot duration and to clarify all the questions now in both directions. Towards the end of the meeting, we're going to decide what we do. Can we extend it by 15 minutes because of the slow start, or we continue the mailing list, or we schedule another meeting? So if anybody feels differently, feel free to speak up now. Otherwise, we just go to the next presentation. Oops, wrong slide deck. All right. Presenter, the slide is yours. I'm going to give pass the slide control to you. Done.
Thank you, Chair. Because Hamian is on the flight, so I present the presentation instead of him. Let me give a very quick introduction about the BBF 508 project, the architecture for the broadband network data connections. And this project is developed by the BBF SDN FV working area and is led by Bruno. And the primary of the broadband network data connection project is aim to define the comprehensive data connection standards across the broadband networks. So please go to the next slides. Okay, let me. Okay, and the purpose of these projects is aim to define the several aim to define the data connection standards related to the data connection architecture and interfaces and the protocols, and investigated some practical use cases related to data connections. So the scope of the broadband network data connections is including the several critical aspects. The first is the architecture definitions. So the BBF is aimed to define the architecture of data connection solutions for broadband networks, and for the interface for the interfaces. BBF is also aimed to specify the related interfaces between the components to ensure smooth communication and integration across the systems. And for the BBF, the standard objects, the BBF is aimed to develop standard data models for data connections, which can be have to data connections is applied to different vendor environments and easy to use. For the main collection use cases, it focus on the some practical use cases such as the real-time or on demand or something else scenarios. The five points, the BBF also needed to focus on the transfer protocols because the current network have multiple data connection protocols. So the current BBF is investigate the potential transfer protocols for broadband networks data connections. And the last 2 points is that the BBF also needed to focus on the data encapsulation measures and develop something data connection tools for easy integration the data connection measures to different systems. So about the deliverables of the broadband network data connections, it needed to produce several technical reports and some open API and some data models for the industrial. So the roadmap of the broadband network connections, the project is started from the January 2024 and is planned to finish it at 2025. But according to the current discussion, and it has the hope to finish that project by the end of the 2025. The left figure, it shows the Hua architecture, which is proposed by Maro, and it includes 4 key essential components: the DC management functions and the DC functions and the DC requester and the data delivery targets and the management entities. For the data management functions, which is processing the data request from the users and management some multiple data connections, and is responsible for data connection configurations. And the DC functions is responsible for the retrieving and receiving the data from the management entities and perform some data connection processing and data transformation. And the DCF is also responsible for delivery the data to related to the data targets for further data analysis. And the data requester and is the data customer or data the user, which post or data collection request to the data connection systems, and the data delivery target is the data basis or data house, and the managing entities is the equipments, which including the several type of the equipments. For example, the traditional physical network functions and the physical network functions and the virtualization network functions. Okay, let me go to the next slides. These slides show the key interfaces of the broadband data connection architecture. It including the five important interfaces: is the data request and the DCMF, which located in the DCM and the data request, which is used to receive the data request and send the data request to the DCMF, and the DCF DDT, which is located between the DCF and the data request, the data delivery targets, which deliver the data to the related to the database and for further analysis. The DCMV is responsible for the data connection configuration tasks. And the DCF and ME, the interface is located between the DCF and the management entities, which is responsible for the collected data from the management entities. DCMF is the configuration interfaces between the DCM and the DCF. And that's the five important DC interfaces. At the current stages, the framework is developing. Any contributions is welcome submitted to the BBF. That's all. Thank you, Sia.
Any clarifying questions on this?
Yeah.
Okay, it seemed it was very clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bye.
All right, so a time check here. So you've seen my message and I mentioned verbally. So Thomas, how long do you need here? This is maybe the first question.
I think I could do that in 5 or maximum 10 minutes.
The key thing is to be able to get cooperation, collaboration topics. So would the people in the call be ready to extend the call by, let's say, maximum 15 minutes? Just reply with a +1 in the chat for this, and we're going to evaluate with the chairs if we need to progress this on the mailing list or extend the call or do another interim. All right, thank you. Feel free to start, Thomas.
Okay, perfect. So on behalf of David and Hamian, the authors, so this is the comparison between the high level on the two architectures. And also we share some key finding and possible action points. So what we identified were on both architectures, what we both care is having standard interfaces for the subscription management, and also basically having a standard interface to collect data from the network, and also having a standard data modeling aspect. And what's also important is that Broadband Forum is using IETF Yang models and heavily augmenting them to also cover the broadband specific aspects. And we see also in both architecture proposal a standard interface for data delivery. And I see Francesca has a question.
Whoops, helps if you come off mute. So yeah, absolutely, netconf, resconf, not a problem. IPFix. Not you're excluding your interest in GNMI and gRPC. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's because I understood from the WT508 that you're looking for a standard interface. So maybe I was misinterpreting that.
Well, no, it's, I mean, you know, what you analyze as both caring, that's okay. So if you don't care about gRPC, GNMI, that's perfectly fine. That doesn't mean the broadband forum doesn't.
Okay,
right.
Understood.
Thanks.
So on the IETF side, what we care is to make the subscription automation happen. So we need to be able to discover capabilities. And also we focus on the subscription life cycle so that we can discover schema changes over time, and also automate the data processing chain so we can easily identify the schema dependencies and integrate them also in the schema registry. And then last but not least, capable of correlating data so that at the end we get a holistic view on the network. Here on the BBF side, and please correct me, David, if I misstate anything. Here the focus is that not only the focus is on Yang itself, on management plane, but also that it can be extended to cover also other aspects, for instance, the forwarding plane covered in IPFix. And here interesting is also if we look at the WT508 document, which use cases should be covered, and looking on the IETF NMOP side, what we are currently working on use cases like CMAP knowledge graph or network observability, we will find a lot of common interests in this area, because at the end, this architecture here is actually, these architectures here are an enabler for those use cases. And on the data modeling side, I was previously mentioned, these are heavily based on IETF hardware, IETF interfaces, IANA hardware, and we have augmentations based from TR383 and 385 here on those models to cover also the broadband specific aspects. So here in highlight some of the things which we see are different. So for instance, data storage part is on the WT508 missing, or also the capabilities or subscription state change part, where on the IETF side, the data requester is being missing in the architecture, and also the interface between the DC management function and the data collection function is missing on the IETF side. So here I did a one-to-one comparison on a component on the interface level, which is reflecting what I've shown in the high-level picture. But in a nutshell, both architectures are very similar, strikingly similar. I think we have a lot of synergies together. If we look on the slide 4, here my question to the round is like, do we agree that these of the 4 things here would be also interesting from a broadband forums perspective, or what are the comments here? I see Bruno in the queue.
Yeah, sorry, I was. If you go back to the slide with the, let me say, the differences between the 2 architectures. Okay, just to let you know that the data delivery target is a generic term that we have defined here in order to identify the data storage. It could be the data delivery target, could be everything. So can be an app that is asking for certain data, or can be the knowledge base. What we call the data storage in BBF is called the knowledge base. So it can be both. So theoretically, this is not something that at the moment is missed, sincerely speaking. I don't see that at the moment. Regarding the data collection push and so on, as you can note, the MEDCF is quite a generic term where we need to work, and this is the part that I think that we need to work together in order to align, in order to have a common understanding and to try to identify a method or more methods, I don't know, that will help us to retrieve the data in different way, because you can understand that at the moment here is a focus related to YAM push or push status, but you can have different type of approaches. You can have push, pull, bulk data, and so on. So we can I feel that this is something that we can work together, but we need also to understand what is the scope of both, because if it is only push, okay, we can work on together in order to define the push mode, but note that we are also working on pull mode and on bulk data retrieval.
And I think you already answered one of the next questions we had on the slide. I think the reasoning for the DCM DCF interface is actually where basically the subscription is being managed, whether the subscription is on the data collection or on the network element. So I think when it's on the data collection, that's why we need the DCM DCF interface in between, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I'll leave the floor to Mauro.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things. The first thing that Bruno said, if you can show again the architecture. So on the storage, a little bit of clarification on the great things on top. We felt like, well, first of all, also maybe to draw a little bit of a line with respect to the approach of the two bodies. Okay, I would say that the work that is being done in 508 is more, this is my assessment, and you correct me, it's more top down. So we had a need to fill a gap in the BBF specification about data collection, which is a generally applicable and important capability, and we wanted to take it out, for example, from the framework related to artificial intelligence. Back to this. So you see there is a sort of top-down approach whereby we're looking at a sort of service-based architecture where we define some building blocks, and you see the yellow stuff there that can put up an overall functionality before talking about the protocols that is going to serve what, okay, a system that has the responsibility of requesting stuff, and then another system that is subject to receiving the stuff, and the two things could be also together. So to go to complement a little bit what Bruno said, in field we know that we could have analytic systems that are naturally the delivery systems, but also put up the request, so the requester and the DDT are integrated, or the DDT could be a passive system receiving data, so typically a storage, and then another requester that has a business logic in mind sets collection campaigns that that will end up with filling up a storage, and then in different ways other systems can pick up the data. You know how it works. What I see more, and getting more back to the comparison, high level comparison of the work you're doing, and again, Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm seeing here that this is, of course, an evolution and improvement with respect to the work you did on the Young Push side based on the protocol. So assuming that there is a Young Push protocol and you are kind of evolving it with respect to the requirements that you have, like scalability and subscription flexibility. This is one main difference. The last point I wanted to make with respect to the work we're doing, we have already, we have, let's say, 3 main chapters in 508. First is a sort of high level set of requirements. The second is the functional requirements of the building blocks, namely the DCMF, which is the brain of the framework. So receiving requests and deploying collection tasks into the muscles. The muscles are the DCFs. And then, of course, the DCF needs to deploy the right interfaces to the resources and then to the towards the delivery targets. So where are we? So with respect to the Young Push framework, which is a sort of predefined protocol choice, we are at a point where once we have kind of corroborated a good set of system block requirements, we will do a selection of eligible protocols with respect to certain needs that will kind of identify the ME to DCF eligible protocols, and then we'll say, okay, do we want to narrow down to a single protocol which can serve bulk collection use case or more? I don't know. Versus the on-demand case, which is I'm picking just certain parameters, not in bulk. And similarly, north of the DCF, a flexible and scalable distribution type of scheme, again, to be defined. Clearly, it's very natural to look at some message broker type of solution, but I don't want to preempt that discussion. So there are clearly overlaps with respect to the natural choices, although I still tend to see the work that we're doing quite open with respect to the ME to DCF protocols and interfaces. Clearly, we are more bounded. I mean, we're looking also at the potential legacies which could influence certain choices versus instead saying, okay, I have a forward-looking type of specification, less binded to that. Again, I'm saying that just for an overall, framework in our thought process. I'm not preempting any discussion, but also to clarify why, for example, Francisco said, well, look, in the sort of beauty context, we might consider together with IPFix and Young Push also GNMI as an industry recognized way of collecting data in a scalable manner. I'm not an expert in GNMI, but the point is we are there. Versus the point that Thomas was putting forward, like, okay, will the BBF or will somebody decide on an interface or protocol also leverage on the fact that it is a standard or not standard? And again, today is not where we're discussing that, but I wanted to level set the discussion like that. So I see the left side as more of a functional and protocol-based architecture. On the left side, something that is more top-down related to a sort of service-based architecture for the data collection capability that we needed to put. The very last point, and then I'll really shut up, is that it's true. The core of expertise of the people working around 508 is mainly on the fixed access segment. But generally speaking, many of these kind of specifications are not done in a domain-specific way. This happens only when we hook down to a given data collection function to BNG, for example, data collection function to access node type of interface. and also the related specifications. So this way, we are also able to let developers apply the very same data collection solution, but of course, specialize on specific domains. I hope it helps, but I think it was useful also to provide that kind of overall scenario, and at least my personal comparison between the two streams of work in IETF and BBF.
I think I will get back to you later on the list. There are also some of the thoughts which you just mentioned later down in the slide deck, but I like to give also time to the other colleagues here.
Very good. Time check, right? There is a chance that this call is going to be closed abruptly, right? So let's all go to the point, please, because we want to get the wrap up with the next steps.
I think, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure if we need to comment further, but I would like indeed to elaborate a little bit on this comparison and focus on the commonalities. So the very first thing that I noticed as being common and appreciate a lot was the fact that both approaches focus on communicating data from the devices of the managed elements, as we say it, once, irrespective of how many consumers will be there to process this data. So indeed, that's a very fundamental communal approach. A little bit on the BBF data collection framework, we kind of trying to abstract also on the protocols there, but we would like for sure at least to be able to support standard protocols. So I see. So in that sense, this young push can fit well in the purpose. And if we go back to the picture, then I would like to make making a preliminary kind of mapping of young push functionalities to DC framework. I would say that these components, on the bottom, the managed young push subscription, the network node young push publisher, data collection young push receiver, are in the scope of DCMF and DCF accordingly. The rest could be considered probably outside of scope, meaning that, okay, for sure there would be something like a message broker there or whatever protocol to share the data towards the DDTs or the data storages. But then the data consumer, the young schema registries, I believe they could be landing more on the data consumer side. So yeah, so pretty much this is how I would preliminarily see this young push fitting in the concept of.
I think you did a great summary. I think one thing I like to comment here is the DCF to DDT, wherever also schema changes should be covered, and also basically not only the data delivery target, but also the data storage capable of creating the schema in the data storage, whether this is an interest on broadband forum side or not. And I see Tom in the
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Thomas, for this very nice overview and very nice job done throughout the years, you and your colleagues, I guess, on this. I was wondering, so it was already mentioned before, so we have also IPFix as a kind of existing protocol used by many operators still. It would be. Have you thought about, okay, you have now this integrated framework where you couple Kafka and the extensions that you're thinking about. So the data mesh capability with this specifically young push protocol. Have you think about doing the same for coupling it with IPFix? Was there any interest to do this, and what's your personal view on that?
Absolutely. So the architecture is open today it's just focused on Yang itself. IPFix have like similar like capabilities in terms of schema. These are called data templates. And in one of the next documents, which we are describing the schema in the message broker itself, it is already agnostic that it can cover also other protocols or other protocols aspect than Yang. Yes, and this is exactly what we are proposing here to extend the architecture beyond Yang.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Oops, sorry, I went too early. If I may, Thomas, very briefly, if you go back to slide 6, if I can, and just observing here, at least in the BBF conversations, I've not heard requirements, information around schema changes. So I think that's positive, really, that we should embrace. On the other side, if I'm being pedantic, I see arrows going into data storage. I don't see anything coming down from from the data storage. And if I go down a level below the data consumer, again, I just see you get the schema, but I'm not seeing the equivalent of formatting the subscriptions and the threshold management and all those good stuff that topics would do. So perhaps that's at a different level. Maybe in your world that's down at the data collection, Yang push receiver level, and at our level it's more at the intelligence end-to-end scenario. Just a comment. I think we can pick up on those points if that's the case.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right, Thomas, any concluding remark on your side before we do a quick wrap up?
I think those were wonderful feedbacks. I think there are on both sides some open items, and looking forward for the discussion.
Very good. So in terms of wrap up, so discussing with Matt, the co-chair, on the side. So Matt, you had like 2 potential follow-ups that you wrote in the notes. Do you want to go over them?
Yeah. So thank you. I would say for both participants from the I would say the NMOP working group and the BBF. So what we heard so far is that there is a need, I would say, for some alignment in terms of the expectation and the scope of the work, the level in which I would say to graph, I would say, the various work which is done in both IETF and the BBF side should be synchronized. So at least from our side, I think that we have at least two candidate items before we as next step. The first one is really to provide an argumentary for why do we need something more than what is currently deployed in networks about GNMI and gRPC, and how the Yang push is really a solution for this. So I think that this is really a fair question and a reasonable one. At least in the IETF, we don't have that. In the NMOP working, we don't have that religious, I would say, poster here. So we are not just pushing for it just for the sake that this is developed in IETF, but we really need to provide, I would say, that kind of argumentary for people outside the IETF to digest and I would say understand the motivation why we are pushing for this work. So that's mainly an action from our side. The other one, which is more common between, I would say, the IETF and the BBF side, and the comments from Francisco and the Mauro and also from Breno really highlighted that part, is that we really need to agree on the scope and the expectation of the architecture and the level of the protocol work we expect in both sides. I don't know how we will be doing that work, but intuitively the one way to do it is continue to have the discussion, including on the mailing list. I guess Thomas maybe attending the next BBF meeting also as well, so we can continue in that directions. There are, of course, I would say, some more protocol specific actions, but I think it's we before going that, for example, discussing BNP, IPFix, and so on, we need first to have, I would say, a common agreement to the first point that I mentioned so far. Of course, we all of those will be recorded in the minutes. We will be circulating them to the BBF colleagues for review and amendment and all every comment that you can have before we publish them as a final version. So Benoit, I don't know if, or Richard, if you want to provide something else.
No, good on my side.
That's a good summary, and I like your 2 high-level follow-ups before going into all the details. And we are engineers who want to go into details, right? But let's focus on the first two. Yes. So with this, thank you very much again to both BBF and IETF colleagues for this. And I see this as a starting point for collaboration. Thank you very much.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, folks.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.